And we are back, the boys, back in town ahead of a decent month, hopefully, of UFC action. We've got Burns v Brady this weekend, and then the Sphere next week. Well, we'll be back to do one of our special draft shows. But we thought we'd catch up after a couple of weeks off. Sam and Joe with you. We're chatting a little bit of news, see what's happening round and about the MMA circles, what fights may be coming up towards the back end of the year or early into 2025. We'll talk a bit about Burns v Brady a little bit later on. But first, Joe, all good in the world of Mr. Harrison?
Yeah, good, thank you. Like I said, really busy. I think we've both been busy, haven't we? I don't think we've mentioned yet, Sam, but I think I'm 2-0 up. Two wins and a draw. Am I 2 wins and a draw up on the draft at the moment? We've avoided
2-0 official, isn't it?
I'm gonna jot that one in. I'm going well. My MMA side of things has been brilliant at the moment. My betting's been good, so yeah, I'm feeling good. To be honest, like I said, last couple of weeks probably been missing. It's as we were discussing before the show. It's just losing inspiration, and it's everywhere you look on Twitter, MMA Twitter. It's not a really positive / exciting place to be at the moment, is he? Being a mad MMA fan, and I want it to change. We've discussed it a few times on the show, haven't we? So hopefully we see an uptick now come the end of the year. There's a couple of exciting fights, obviously, if they nail this UFC, no shame. Butchering pronunciation there. But yeah, I'm good. Like I said, a bit down on my MMA for the last couple of weeks, but my betting side's been good. So yeah, hopefully good end to the year coming up. Sam, how are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, same really. Well, apart from the picks, we should say, yeah, watch out for our draft shows. Have been pretty good so far. The success rate has been decent across the board, but as Joe said, he is flying at the minute. 5 out of 5 last time. We picked 5 fighters for every card in a bit of a draft style, and yeah, last time out for UFC 305, Joe, yeah. Complete whitewash, got all 5 of his picks right. So, yeah, I'm sure he was in a nice, healthy profit after that one. But as you said, we're kind of waiting on a few bits. Just cast my mind back when you said it there to Dane. I think did like an Instagram live or something a couple of weeks ago and was looking up at the board and was like, We've got Jones announcement. We've got McGregor. We've got Holloway news, even though Holloway's already got a fight. We got, I can't remember the other names on the list, but he reeled off 3 or 4 the bigger superstar names that might be out before the end of the year. So potentially, just as we had the start of 2024, which was good with 299 and 300, and we had Volkanovski was another name that he mentioned as well. So it looks like the back end of the year is going to be jam-packed with the likes of Jones against Miocic and then potentially Conor McGregor in the mix there as well against Chandler.
Yeah, hopefully, like I said, hopefully we have a good uptake. I'm not confident about Conor McGregor. If you look at Twitter, they're saying he's in some difficulties that's yet to be leaked, I guess. So, yeah, I'm the Conor one. Don't want to be negative. I'm not too confident on, but the rest of them, like you said, Holloway's always incredible. You know, you're in for a great fight night, great fight. You've got Volkanovski, who I love. I think you love. We want to see have a bounce back win after 2 very tough losses. So yeah, some exciting stuff coming up. And like I said, Alex Pereira fighting again. We've got John Jones, Miocic. Hopefully on the back of that, we'll see Tom Aspinall Jones announced if obviously John Jones does beat Miocic. So a bit of hope to come. But yeah, we've got to wait for it, Sam. We've got a couple more weeks. Hopefully the UFC event next week coming up, the big night is builds and lives up to expectation. I think that will get everyone back flying into their UFC and MMA love again.
Yeah, I think, I'm looking forward to seeing the visual spectacle of the Sphere show. You mentioned Volkanovski there, and one of the ones that was linked with him a couple of weeks ago, which had gone a little bit quiet, was Charles Oliveira. Those two getting it on at lightweight. Obviously, we've seen Volk in both divisions. He's kind of maybe waiting for that title shot at featherweight off the winner of Holloway Topuria. But would you be interested in that one, Oliveira against Volkanovski?
Yeah, I would. Can't lie. I think Volk's title days may be over. He's past the age of 35, 36 now. I think he's in that Poirier, probably. Well, not Holloway, because he's now got back after a few years, but he's in that Poirier, Gaethje, obviously in the weights above. There's a few others in the about where it's just exciting. You know they're going to have a good fight, and it's just good to see him. And that's where I see him. So yeah, really excited about Oliveira Volkanovski. If that does get announced, if that is a fight, I'd prefer that to probably another rematch. We get to see him an incredible fight, two brilliant fighters, two fighters with loads of history. That would excite me. Yeah, be honest with you, don't do much for either fighter in terms of title division options, but for a spectacle and just watching good fighters fight against each other, which is becoming more and more rare at the moment. I'm all for that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I like that one. That would be a good matchup if they can get that one made. We'll kick off talking Alex Pereira. Since the middleweight title fight, where obviously Du Plessis defeated Israel Adesanya, Pereira's come out and he said he wants to go down to middleweight one more time and fight Dricus. And even though that was a few weeks ago now, he doubled down on it in kind of the last week. On Insta came out and said that's what he would like to do. Should he get past Khalil Roundtree, go back down and face Dricus. And the interesting thing in the post-fight presser for the Contender Series this week, Dana was asked about it, and he kind of agreed. Normally, he kind of bats those kind of moving divisions sometimes away, but he said about Pereira that that's kind of what fans love about him. That he could potentially go down, he could potentially end up at heavyweight as well. So I kind of wonder what you thought about that, and Pereira with the potential to go to heavyweight in the future. Obviously, we've got this cloudiness of Jones, Stipe, and then the Aspinall situation resolving off the back of that. So it seems that maybe heavyweight move isn't as clear as maybe it could have been. But Pereira heading back down to middleweight to face Du Plessis at some point, would that interest you as well?
Yeah, it would. I think obviously he's thinking tactically. In my view, obviously I don't know him, but I'd say he's thinking tactically. The UFC heavyweight division is just clogged. It's not clogged. We don't know where it's going to lie. So we're probably a while off that clearing up. Aspinall wants Jones. Jones, we don't know whether he wants to fight again after Miocic, and we've still got to wait a bit for him to fight Miocic. We know how busy Pereira is. So yeah, if he cleans up Khalil Roundtree and then wants to go back, I'm not going to stop him. He might as well. He obviously looks at Dricus, looks at the quote-unquote sloppy offensive style he has. Obviously, it's been very effective, but it's not the most pretty. And probably someone of Pereira's stand-up quality thinks, well, I can handle that pretty easily. I don't doubt he'll want another championship to add to his resume and keep the good vibes going for Pereira. Yeah, I'm not saying no to anything Pereira wants to do as long as he keeps fighting often. I think he's single-handedly kept the UFC alive in the last year or two. So yeah, keep it whatever he wants. I'm all in.
Yeah, and the fact you mentioned that, he has jumped in on several occasions to save shows. The UFC brass do tend to be kind of more agreeable to, I would say, bending the traditional rules of number one contenders and that, and keeping them in, these kind of exciting matchups against other star names. And you've got Ankalaev waiting there. He's got Rakic next. Should he come through that? He's been on this unbeaten run that a bit like Belal Muhammad, was, that he needs that title shot up next. But can you see it happening next? Can you see if he does beat Rakic and Pereira comes through against Roundtree? Do we see actually Pereira beat Ankalaev happening in maybe early 2025 before a Dricus or a move to heavyweight?
What? Yeah.
Or is it going to just be avoided?
I don't know, because Ankalaev's scary to me. I think he's a scary fighter. He's definitely got weaknesses in his game, as we saw the last fight, where he's yeah, doesn't quite do enough, but he's scary. He's aggressive. He's got an interesting style. So yeah, I don't know, Sam. I'm going to chuck it on to you. What are your thoughts? Where are you? What would you say?
I don't know. I kind of think that it may be avoided a little bit, and that maybe, you know, if he does, the Pereira, like you said, he's thinking a little bit tactically. He's kind of chucked that thing in there with Du Plessis, that, you know, that seed has been planted now that he could go back down. That is an entertaining fight, as you said, with Dricus's style and Pereira's power, and then obviously teasing the heavyweight move up as well. As you said, it's unresolved, but potentially Jones, you know, they both, him and Stipe, put the gloves down in the octagon in November, and that leaves Aspinall, you know, who's pretty much cleared out the rest of the heavyweight division, you know, needing a new challenge. So potentially, I think Pereira's kind of put himself in both positions to go down or to back up, and, you know, should things work out either way. I know obviously Du Plessis got to face Strickland, but he's given himself two really good options to kind of navigate that, and then potentially Ankalaev gets a shot at like an interim title. You know, if the UFC give Pereira the opportunity to go and do something a little bit different, and make some kind of history, whether that's a 3-division champ at heavyweight or if that's someone going back down while holding the light heavy title.
He's not young anymore, is he? So yeah, he's probably, like I said, he's probably only got 2 or 3 fights left. I don't want to cap him, because he's proven everyone wrong at every stage. But I can't imagine he's got a long time left in the sport. So yeah, he'd probably hunt him for that, be the first ever triple UFC champion, if he can. Obviously, he'll try to beat Thomas Minot, but if he does, yeah, he'll probably hang up the hat there. He's not getting any younger, and yeah. So you're probably right there, Sam. It probably don't benefit him having someone hungry and athletic and strong as Ankalaev to go toe for toe with, unless he's that comfortable, unless he's that confident he can easily wipe the floor. He probably is with Khalil Roundtree. You're probably right. He'll probably avoid it, won't he? It's not needed for him.
Yeah, we'll see on that one. It's definitely an interesting little thing that's kind of bubbling under the surface. Let's talk about one of our other new champs in the UFC. We were there at UFC 305 in Manchester to see Belal Muhammad crowned the welterweight king, dethroning Leon in over 5 rounds. And there's obviously been a lot of talk about now Belal, who he's going to face next. There was potentially, I suppose, a few little unresolved, making a clear number 1 contender in that division. Shavkat probably is the standout, given his 18-0 record, 18 finishes that he's got, but probably needed that one more, maybe against JDM or someone like that to be the clear number 1 contender. So Belal has kind of been talking about Kamaru Usman, and that'd be a legacy fight for him as champion, facing the quote unquote greatest welterweight of all time. When Usman was on top with his undefeated streaks. Where do you see that division going? Do you see them giving Shavkat a shot at something, at somebody else, or is he going to get the next title shot, or do the UFC chuck Belal someone like an Usman, who obviously is on a losing streak, but is still in good fights at the top level and still holds a decent ranking?
Yeah, probably. I want to see a champion defend his title. They've got to get 2 or 3 notches on. I get that they're all about money, and obviously they'll have people push for this, push for that. This will get you the money, but I want to see him get 2 or 3. Dana says it now, but then he changes his mind quite often on it. But just get 2 or 3 notches on the belt and say, you know what, I beat the couple of contenders. Let me have that legacy fight next. I just don't. I think that's what's also hurting the sport, is that it's struggling to it's struggling to have these cemented champions, these things. And then when someone does win 3 fights, we're all absolutely ecstatic about it, saying, "Oh, what a champion!" This and that. And then if you think of the Anderson Silva GSP days, it was. If you look at even more Aldo, these champions defended it more, and it creates a division underneath that's hungry, and they're going at it. And yeah, I want to see some relaxation on all this crazy fighting. It's been fun, but I think that's why fans are probably getting sick of stuff now, because we want to see these fights. We want to see a champion defend it multiple times, like Usman did, to be fair to him, and go at it. So yeah, no, I'd rather him see, like I said, JDM. He's got a few very tough fights to go at before I think he gets a legacy fight.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, yeah, what you said there, like we do see a lot of these kind of the UFC almost at times they were reluctant, obviously, to give Belal that shot against Leon. It took him a long time to earn it, just as it did Leon. And some of these guys that maybe don't have the star power, as it were, or the name, sometimes they're overlooked. You know, in that division, like we had the Usman v Masvidal, for example, a couple of times against Colby Covington, when even though the first fight was good, should somebody else have kind of had another shot there? And it feels like the UFC have had, as we've said, this reel of the last 3 or 4 years, time where they've bloomed and where they've had all these star names, but now those names are on decline. Sometimes it seems like they're still getting the shots over some of the contenders, and maybe that's why we're not seeing the next massive star, as I think we touched on off air. The next big superstar that you're really looking forward to seeing headline a pay-per-view. They're just being held back by some of these older names that are just stay in that top 5, get a win, and then get a title shot again.
Yeah, with you. Yeah, exactly. So now let's have some fresh faces. Let's have some proper fresh fights. Like you said, some new intro. Yeah, I can't say it better. I'll leave that statement to what you said, Sam. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, we'll see that one. So that Belal Muhammad is the champion, and then if we just quickly look at the rankings, Leon Edwards is still one, obviously losing. We'll see what he does next. Maybe Ian Gary. Then it is still Kamaru Usman, still the number 2 ranked welterweight. He's obviously been up and had a go at Khamzat at short notice, but he still sits at number 2. Then Rakhmonov, then JDM, then still Colby Covington. You're in the top 5, and then Gilbert Burns, who fights this weekend at 6. Obviously, Sean Brady, a bit more fresh blood, will be looking to take that spot, knocking on the door of the top 5 with an impressive performance. So yeah, you kind of sometimes get it clogged by these former champions who it takes a while for them to drop down the rankings and for some of these guys to get ahead of them, really. But we'll see on that one. And while we're talking about older names in this division, Jorge Masvidal has done an interview this week and seems pretty certain his next fight will be in the UFC. He's going to be 40 in November. He lost 4 on the bounce before he left the UFC. Obviously lost to Nate Diaz as well in what was a competitive boxing fight in his last fight earlier this year. But Masvidal, any interest in seeing him back in the octagon?
I think that you knew the answer as you were asking it there, Sam. I think no interest whatsoever. He's had his time. You know what, that Masvidal era when he sadly knocked out Darren Till and then went on the run. Brilliant, awesome for the sport. But come on, Jorge, I don't get it. Well, normally it's about money, sadly, isn't it? When money's not as good, so they think, well, I can earn a few million with some big fights still. But yeah, no, I'm not into it. Go figure out what's next, Jorge. Go work on other parts of your life. You've been a legend. It just ends up tarnishing legacy, doesn't it? It just ends up tarnishing that amazing run he had. No, because he's not going to beat any of the top contenders. And if he does, unless he knocks him out in that spectacular of a fashion like he did Darren Till all those years ago now, but unless he unless he does knock out in some crazy fashion, it's just going to harm the contenders. It's just going to harm the ranking, and again, probably kill a lot of hype in whoever he faces, or kill the aura of. There's a lot of aura talk on Twitter at the moment, and I think if he wins, he'll just kill any aura of any of them top fighters. So yeah, no, stay away. Work on what's next, Jorge. I know it's tough in it when you retire and you've got to figure out what's next, but I think it's time.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm against him coming back and it being a title run, as he says. But I think sometimes in the UFC there should be a bit more clearer of two brackets of there's contenders and then there's guys that have dropped out. If you look at this division, I suppose we'll see what happens with Burns this weekend. But Burns is 38 now. If he loses to Sean Brady, then I don't sometimes want to see these guys given loads of upcoming fighters. Sometimes you just like to see them end their career with 2 or 3 fun fights at the end. You've got like a Stephen Thompson in that mix in welterweight. We've got MVP in that mix. He's come in. He's lost against Ian Gary. So the Leon Edwards per fight is perhaps still there if Leon Edwards loses. But coming in and Masvidal be MVP being on a pay-per-view. I'm not like massively against that kind of stuff as long as it's clear that Masvidal is nowhere near a title shot. He comes out and he obviously thinks now Leon Edwards is quite an attractive fight. Now he's got beaten, but Leon would have to lose 2 to get given a Masvidal. But I'm not against Masvidal coming in and facing, like I said, if Conor doesn't fighting Michael Chandler at 170 in just an entertaining fight against MVP in an entertaining fight, as long as there's no talk of fucking rankings or anything like that or being in the top 10. I'm not against him coming back, but as long as he's just that's like that kind of clear thing. I think we've seen that with Tony Ferguson, haven't we? But yeah, his reputation is tarnished a little bit. But as long as they're in with like fun fights, then with UFC it doesn't necessarily matter if you win or lose sometimes. Yeah,
bit of clarity. Yeah, as long as, like you said, as long as it's stated. No, good point. I would watch Chandler and them. I love watching Stephen Thompson fight anyway. So yeah, you're right. I would watch a lot of them. Get them out the rankings. Let the fresh blood come in, and like I said, have some fun fights. Have a separate bracket, like you said, of a UFC fight night where it's normally upcomers going against each other. You've got the big ones where they're all at it. Then have a UFC, like you said, have a separate one, a UFC.
Is it like a veterans, isn't it? Like a veterans league.
A league of legends where they all just go at it, have a load of fun, and we can just watch some fights and not take it too seriously and not be up in arms when a young title contender's been dethroned, or when an old person's got embarrassingly knocked out by embarrassingly knocked out by a young 28-year-old who's hungry. And it's just, I like it. League of Legends, let's have it.
That'll be the next belt, won't it? The Legends belt. Let's move on. And the kind of last newsy kind of thing was another thing that kind of came out of it actually came from these shows this week with Turki Alalshikh, the Saudi boxing king. I don't really know what to call him, but the guy that's making all the big fights in boxing with the Saudi Arabia money. Obviously, they are sponsoring the UFC Noche show next week to help plug the financial gap of spending 20 million on some big screens for a show in the Sphere. But Saudi Arabia making big plays in boxing, and Turki Alalshikh has come out this week on TalkSport in the UK and said he wants to have a $20 universal pay-per-view price for his boxing events, which he does 5 or 6 of a year. But then obviously that kind of gets in everyone's ether of talking about, is this the best way to combat piracy, which is the reason he wants to bring it in. Too much illegal streaming. If the price point was fairer, particularly in America, somewhere you've lived and know all about, would that combat the amount of people trying to stream fights illegally. Dana was asked about it again in this Contender Series press conference and came out bullish as Dana does. The only way to stop it is to prosecute people, which is what we do. But what do you think? Is Turkey? Are you more in the Turki Alalshikh camp of reduce the price, more people will pay? Or are you in the Dana camp that it's just down to prosecuting people and the kind of genie's out of the bottle, and whatever the price is, people are still going to stream it now because it's there, it's available?
Probably, like you said, a mix of there's probably a fair mix of both in there, isn't there? As always, like somewhere in the middle without being boring. I think he's definitely right. In the UK, the UFC, if it's on BT box office, which I think a couple of the big English fights are now, it's only 20 quid, and I imagine a lot of people are willing to do that. I know I've paid for a few of them without using the dreaded S word. I'll not say it on here in case Dana's ever watching, but you know what I mean. I don't mind paying that, so that's definitely right there. But then I also know a bunch of people where it doesn't matter what it is. They don't fancy paying, they're going to stream. So the only way, I guess, if they really find it that bad, is to prosecute. So yeah, there's probably a mix of both. I think what you have to pay in America for UFC fights, and I don't know if we've got and how big of an American audience we've got, but I do feel for them. It's just crazy. You pay for ESPN Plus, then you've got to pay. It's somewhat crazy for ESPN Plus a month now. Then it's another 80 to 100 for the shows, and paying for the pay-per-view. It's just unreal. It's unreal. And the dreaded S word was used and was battered around a lot when I did live over there, a lot more than it is over here when, like I said, BT have got the rights. Most of them aren't on box office, and the ones that are, they only charge 20 quid, and it's like, well, there's no, the S word's not needed, the stream word's not needed for the UK. I've never thought about stream unless I'm having total internet difficulties, or something's happening, the app doesn't work, something daft like that, what's happened in the past. But other than that, yeah, I'm with him. But yeah, in America, they're never, Dana can't say prosecute when they're charging hundreds of pounds to watch a fight night. It's just crazy. But we'll see. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle, a bit like you, really. I think when it is more of a boxing thing, isn't it? In the UK, where you tended probably 3 or 4 years ago to get a lot of pay-per-views when Eddie Hearn was doing more fights. Over here, obviously every Joshua fight's a pay-per-view. Then all of a sudden they made Tony Bellew a pay-per-view star when he was fighting like David Hay and people like that. Then you had people like Kell Brook. And then you'd have Frank Warren coming in with his shows. You'd Tyson Fury when he came back. Every fight's a pay-per-view. So you ended up with a lot of pay-per-views. So yeah, I think when it gets cloudy like that, you can see Turki Alalshikh's point that, you know, if everything's like, if Joshua fights all of a sudden, then it's 30 quid, or you know, Fury fights, and they put the price up a little bit more than it once was. So I get it from that point of view. Well, then I kind of think as well, if a lot of people who do stream probably will do that as well for other sports. So like here in the UK, for example, you can't watch Premier League football in America is available at 3 o'clock. You can watch every game, where over here we have a blackout, so you can't watch every game. So people will buy things like Fire Sticks and have software on them to watch Premier League football across the board, so they can watch 3 o'clock matches. And then once you've got that, you've got access to boxing, you've got access to UFC. So all of a sudden it's like, well, I've got it. So do I then pay for other stuff if I've already got this access to streaming that I've bought primarily to watch another sport? So it's a difficult one. I'm probably more of the opinion that it's too far, that streaming is just an acceptable kind of loss. And I agree that you can combat it a little bit, Turki Alalshikh, by bringing the price down. More people would probably go, well, that's a fair price, I'll pay it. But then, yeah, at the same time, I just think it's too readily available to people, particularly buy it for things like football. If you've already got it, why would you then pay for it? unless you had a real fear of prosecution, which I don't know whether people do or they don't. But I would suggest that once they paid their 60 quid to somebody else for a year's Fire Stick subscription, that they aren't really thinking about anyone knocking on the door from the authorities to take away the Fire Stick and give them a fine. But yeah, that's my view. I think it's probably gone a little bit too far to clean it up fully, I'd say.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you.
Let's talk about this weekend then, and some actual fights. Gilbert Burns against Sean Brady, the former title challenger. Gilbert Burns at welterweight against Sean Brady, who's 6-1 in the UFC. We've got some other decentest fights on this. Natalia Silva's facing Jessica Andrade. Silva, an unbeaten fighter in the UFC so far. But obviously building up to next week's pay-per-view, really this one just giving us a bit of a taste of a couple of good names in action ahead of a pay-per-view next weekend. But where are you seeing the main event of Burns against Brady?
I'm going to contradict myself completely here after everything I've done. You might disagree with me, but I thought Gilbert Burns' last performance were very impressive. He's put his ego aside. Like there's a thing that I think Joe Rogan's touched on hundreds of times, where once a grappler realizes they can knock people out, they start falling in love with throwing the right hand, and Gilbert Burns fell into that trap himself. But I love his grappling. I think he's an absolute animal. He's nothing like his brother, whose brother looks like he's given up on the sport at the moment. And I think, I don't want to say he's got one more title, but I don't think, in the same hand, I don't think Sean Brady's the man to put an end to Gilbert's career. I don't see it, and I've got Gilbert Burns winning this one, Sam.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm going with Sean Brady. I think just a younger, fresher guy. He's got a decent record in the UFC. 6-1. He's only lost to Belal Muhammad. He's had quite a lot of injuries and illnesses, and he's kind of had a bit like a stop-start UFC career, really, Sean Brady. But more often than not, he comes in and wins. I thought he looked good last time. Dominated Gastelum over 3 rounds. Got the late submission as well. I suppose my only thing with him is that this is, I think, anyway, I would presume so, his first 5-rounder in the UFC, and obviously he's fighting, so I would assume he is pretty much fully fit. He's pulled out of quite a few fights when he's not right, so I would presume that he's in good nick ahead of this one, Sean Brady, and I think 38 Gilbert Burns, like you said, good performance last time out, but he's lost his last 2, and do you kind of get used to that losing your mentality a little bit? And I've got Brady just being too strong for him. They're both good grapplers, obviously. So I think Brady's just looks strong, and I think against Burns at this stage of his career, I'm just probably going to edge towards him. I think so. I'm with Sean Brady, but we'll see if it goes deep. That'd be an interesting test for Brady to see it go into the championship rounds and see what happens there, because Burns, he won't give up. Even if he's injured, when he's had broken arms and stuff like that, he'll keep going and he won't stop. So good test for Brady, and I think he comes through it. Yeah,
I like it. We'll see on the night. We'll have a go, see who's right on that one. But I get you. I've always weirdly just rated Burns. I've just always rated Burns. Like you said, he got a bit daft for a few fights, but I think he's just got one last run in him.
One last run. We love one last run, don't we?
Plenty of them going about, didn't
they? Any thoughts? We'll just do the comment, I think, and then maybe if you've got a cheeky treble, we could chuck it in. But Andrade against Natalia Silva. Silva, the fresh face at 27, 5-0 in the UFC. Andrade, it's still only 32. I thought she might be a little bit older than that. She's 17-10 in the UFC. She's been in some wars. What do you think about this one?
I'm gonna go the same way. The same, like you said, I think George wins. I think I'm going with the old names. I've contradicted myself completely on what I said earlier, but there is a reason they do stick around a bit, because they are normally there's a level above. And George is an absolute animal. I was worried she were fading off, and then she just did awesome in the last fight against Marina Rodriguez, who's a very good stand-up fighter, had some really impressive performances. You've got to be able to outmuscle Andrade, not outmuscle, but at least match the strength and power. And I don't know if Natalie Silva can. If she can, she'll win, because Andrade, it's not the most well-rounded. She's not the most well-rounded fighter, but if she gets hold of you, if she outpowers you, there's just nothing you can do. She's just more physical and stronger than 90% of the women, and I think. Yeah, I think she's winning again. I think that this is the better the night. I think Natalie Silva's quite a weirdly heavy favourite, Sam. In my view, weirdly favourite. I'd never write off Jessica Andrade. She's on a good win streak. She's won 2 in a row, actually, hasn't she, recently? So, 1, 2, 1, 1. But yeah, I think Andrade wins, and it's the best bet of the night.
It's not a bad shout, you know. I think I do like Andrade. I think this one is back up in weight, isn't it? So this year, last 2 wins were down at 115, and this one's back at 125. I'm going to edge towards Silva. Last time I picked, female fighter with an unbeaten record, it went drastically wrong in the UFC. She's got a good win streak. I think she's got 11 wins in a row. Yeah, she's decent on her feet. That's the only worry, that Andrade is too strong. She grapples a little bit, and then if you do get into a war with Andrade, the chances are she can be knocked out, but then there's also a big chance that she's going to land one on you as well. So yeah. Interesting fight, but it's like you said, you picked out there the 2 underdogs in Burns and Andrade. You would not be surprised winning. I just put it in quickly, and that gives us an 8-1 double there, Joe. If you're going Burns and Andrade.
Well, if we go to it's not the third, it's the 4th one.
He's chucking in the treble. He's chucking the treble in.
I'm chucking the treble in. I think another underdog. I'm going Matt Schnell. Oh no, he's favourite.
Snell, really good Snell.
I've got Snell, so I've got so I've currently got it on at the moment. I put £5 on that treble. I get, including the boost that the Bet365 get you, I get £168 if they win. And I've never been more confident in such a underdog-led treble in my life. Not that, like you said, you not that I said they're all underdogs, but they're all, for me, they're 50-50 it's 50-50 fights all along. Maybe Cody Durden might think, but they're 50-50 fights, and I'm getting the greatest odds I've ever had on things. I'm fair. I think I've got the edge on. So yeah, it could be a big night for me, Sam. If you want to join me in a bit of fun,
I feel like I've got to join you on that. I agree, though. Like you say, Andrade, Silva coming in there, she's maybe untested at this like top level. You've got to get past an Andrade to kind of move on, and she's done that probably to so many up and coming fighters where you thought, Andrade's on the way out, she's going to lose, and then she has this kind of second run in her. Burns the same. He's kind of that guy, isn't he? That he'll lose a couple, but then he'll win a couple back, and that's why he stays in that top 5, top 6 in the rankings. And then this fight, I was looking at this fight, and Snell is like 6-6, I think, in the UFC, and Durden, I think, is 6-5 in the UFC. So it's not as if he's coming up. And Matt Snell's been knocked out quite a few times. He's not got the greatest chin, and I do think Cody Durden's got some dog in him. Like he'll keep going and he'll fight, but he's not the biggest puncher in the world. So he's not. So potentially, this is a good fight for Matt Schnell to potentially get a win. So yeah, I don't think it's a decent show, and it's giving you odds of 30-1 on a UFC treble. It's the top top 3 or 4 fights on the card. Then you're either mad or or you've
They
spotted.
must know something we don't. They must not know because I've watched a video on Twitter of, I think, unless I've got my names mixed up, I think it was Cody Durden getting all his eyes stitched up after his last fight, and he had his face all clogged up, and that wasn't that long ago. They said it was only a couple months ago that he's had to have stitches and everything. And then obviously, as we've been over the other two fights, it's just awesome value for him. As I said, 50-50, pick him out of the hat. We don't know who's going to win, in my view. That's what so I'm having a fun. Let's hope the underdogs all win, and it pay for a big night out if they win. That I'm on it. I'm on the dance floor at 4 a.m. if they do.
Oh, amazing! All right, well, I think we'll leave it there. I don't think we're going to top that. A 30-1 treble in the UFC. So yeah, I think I've got to join you on that, and a couple of quid. Why not? Everybody should be just joining. Even though I've kind of picked the other way for most of the fights, and probably I would have picked Cody Durden, to be honest. But you can see it going the other way, particularly with my form at the minute. So yeah, why not? Why not? Let's have a crack at that 30-1 treble from Joe. We'll be back next week with another draft show, so watch out for that ahead of UFC 306. O'Malley against Merab should be an interesting fight, and obviously this Sphere show with all the bells and whistles on it. We shall wait to see what that looked like. Joe, thanks very much, and we shall speak again next week.
See you next week.